eating a burrito, bidding on a Cessna 182 from my iPhone. Thanks, Taylor, for having us back for a third story time episode. Today, we're going to tell you the story of how this 182 behind us joined the collection.
Yes, once upon a time, I had the Rolls Royce out in the desert. I get a phone call from Jeffrey and says, "What do you know about 182s? Look up all this stuff on the internet. Call whoever you can call real quick because we need to buy this one like right now." And I said, "Okay, I'll do that all right now. Send me whatever information you can and I'll forward it on to whoever we want to take expertise from." And I did that. And then I called Jeffrey back and he says, "All right, we won the plane. All good?" And
It was crazy. Crazy morning.
and I was like, "Aren't you curious what I have to say?"
Yeah, he was too late. I gave him like 5 minutes to quickly make a decision if we wanted to buy this plane. He didn't call me back in time, so I bought the plane. Too late. So yeah, literally that's how it went. Crazy story. One morning, I just saw this plane listed online and it was ending like that morning. And we pulled the trigger. Owen and I eating burritos at a Mexican food shop, literally bidding online on our phone from my iPhone. We won a Cessna 182. Crazy. Not just any 182 though. This is a very, very nicely modded 182. So we're going to tell you the story of some of the modifications that were done to this, how we got it, and what our plans are for it. This is like the latest acquisition. So you're literally like the first person to see this plane up close, and we haven't even posted our videos with it yet. But we're going to tell you the story here because it's pretty good. So before the burrito shop, though, I did have a chance to look at this plane. Finally, we learned our lesson to look at a plane before you buy it. So Owen and I were able to preview this right before the auction. We had like an hour to check out the plane before shelling out all this cash, right? So it was actually coming back from Reno Air Races. It was right along the way back home to San Francisco. So I'm like, okay, why not go look at this plane and maybe we'll bid on it. Yeah, we did indeed bid on it. We did win it, but at least we were able to see it in person. So it was a very, very nice plane overall, as you can see in the background here. Couple little things to like fix up and stuff, but what's very unique about it is it has a big observation window. It's an STC for like camera ships or like state agencies doing observation work. So sure enough, it was owned by the state of California. And they put that on there and used it for all sorts of state of California stuff. But that's actually a good thing in my book, and you would agree that like state planes are very well maintained, very, very well maintained. Owen and I flipped through all the logs on this plane, and every single time, it got a factory new engine. They didn't rebuild anything. They just ripped it out, throwing a brand new engine, and they threw a ton of money at modifications. So Owen and I started to see all these things while we're checking out the plane, going through the STCs and everything. We're like, wow, this thing is like really heavily modified. And the auction didn't really make note of that. Like they kind of just, it was bare bones. Like here's some pictures, here are the planes, and it's ending, later this week. Bid on it if you want. So Owen and I were armed with some good information that a lot of people didn't know, and that enabled us to get a really solid deal on this plane and have a lot of a big leg up and a lot of advantage over other bidders who couldn't see this plane in person. So that kind of gets us up to present day. So we had a huge advantage going into the live auction, knowing all the modifications that were done with the plane and not described in the listing. So I was confident we would win it, and sure enough, what do you know, we won it. It sunk in like shortly after my lunch that like, oh my gosh, like we got to pay for this thing now and like fly it home like tomorrow. So we scrambled that day, like that same day. That's when I called you freaking out. Like when you called back, I said, yo, we won this thing. Like you need to wire the money like today so that I can fly it home with Owen like later that day.
And I said, "Which car do you want me to sell? Which car? How are we going to come up with this?"
Yeah, we did have to scramble a little bit and to come up with the cash. I think I stayed overnight with Owen there in San Francisco. But yeah, the next morning, we wired the money, got it paid for, and they handed us the keys and the logbooks to our new Cessna 182. So that's the crazy story of how it came about. Last second auction, couldn't pass it up, and get this, only one other guy came to preview the plane. Only one other guy. So only one other guy knew of the big beefed up engine and all the other special modifications. So it was great. Bidding wasn't too intense, and we got a great deal on it. Speaking of those modifications, I think it's time we get into the modifications, and then we'll get into the flight home for the first time, flying it back from California. This time it did have one stop for fuel, so it wasn't nonstop. Pretty easy flight. But okay, Christian, let's shell out some modifications because this is where Christian comes into it. The first 2 days of this plane, he was home in Arizona.
That's right, you did just mention the beefed up engine, and this is quite the conversion that you don't see every day. It is a Continental IO 520, so fuel injected and big displacement.
Probably the same engine that's going in that Bonanza right now, flying overhead. He's probably got a 520. So this big fuel injected IO 520 replaces the carbureted 0470 that originally came in the plane. This is a P model made in '76. So it would have had 230 horsepower from the factory. And now we got 300 horses on takeoff for like 5 minutes, and then 285 continuous horsepower, which that's a big step up. That's a lot of power under the hood for a 182. So it's common to do like engine upgrades, like you mentioned with the P-Ponk 50. So I think like you can easily tune them to get an extra 25 or 50 horsepower. But to do the full fuel injection conversion, it's a lot of work because think about it, you're changing all the fuel lines and all the mounting for this engine. It's a much bigger engine and a little more weight up front. It's a lot. I think it's about maybe $70,000 for the conversion or something like that. So to have this already done on the plane and possibly the other bidders not knowing that this modification was done, this enabled us to get the great deal on it because people didn't know what was going on under the cowling. So that's the biggest mod that adds mega value to this plane, and it makes it an absolute monster. I mean, some of the specs we've talked about, landing and takeoff roll, like maybe about 300 feet is what we were hearing. So obviously climb rate and cruise speeds are drastically increased with this modification. So
as well as fuel burn.
Yeah, and fuel burn probably, but then again, fuel injected carbureted motors can be pretty thirsty, I think. So fuel injection, this thing actually is pretty good on the fuel economy. But the biggest thing you'll notice though is the climb rate, and I believe they post on their website. It's an Airplanes, AIRPLAINS, Airplanes Conversion. That's the company that does these swaps. They list about 1,500 to 1,800 feet per minute on this plane, which is maybe almost double what you would normally see in a 182. Not sure what it is. 50% increase, huge increase. The angle of attack when you're flying this thing for the first time on takeoff, it was the weirdest sight picture because I've never felt anything like that. I'm used to like 500 feet per minute or something like that, just normal numbers. So when you're going 1,500 feet per minute, you're just like, all you see is sky above you. It's the weirdest thing. But so with the bigger motor, I think they advertise on their website maybe 15 or 20 knot increase in cruise speed, like 145, maybe 150, I think some people see. We don't quite see that because we got these big tires on the plane as well, in addition to the Stol kit up there. You see that?
Yes, one of my favorite mods would be the Sportsman Stol kit equipped to this plane. And while it might slow you down a little bit, it's not a high price to pay for the runway performance that you're going to be able to achieve, both taking off and landing at super short strips, and these bigger tires to really take you to some fun strips is going to be so much fun. Definitely something to look forward to, something to train towards, because we see these amazing YouTubers going to some of these amazing remote locations, and who wouldn't want to work toward that someday?
This is like the ultimate backcountry plane. Everybody loves the modded 182s. The numbers are insane with the Stol kit and this motor. They advertise, once again, takeoff and landing in maybe around 300 feet. Are you kidding me? That's one football field. By the time touchdown zone to touchdown zone, you're off the ground or landed. Whereas like the Bonanza needs like 2,000. This being 300 is just, it's something I had not experienced before, being off the ground in just seconds and landing at such a slow speed. The stall speed with the Stol kit is like 37 knots or 42 knots, something just like super low. So it is a safety thing. Like it definitely helps you probably be a safer pilot. Like this plane, from what I've heard, the previous pilots who flew it, they said it is difficult to stall. They said they like cannot get the nose to drop. It'll just kind of like sink. So I feel like some of these characteristics will be a little safer training in. That's one of the reasons we bought it. Again, too good of a deal to pass up, and it's got great mods, all that. But it's also a really good plane that we could possibly train in because now that we sold the SR20. Christian, your thoughts there?
Yeah, so similarly to the Bonanza, it did not come with rear seats once again. And so as soon as we get those put in, we want to do some formal training because we want to maximize our bang for the buck and one of us sit in the back seat. So at that point, we will have no excuse not to begin training on this awesome platform. We can't wait.
Yeah, a little easier to train in this thing than the Turbo Bonanza we talked about last story, but really good for training. It does IFR capabilities. It's got a 530 WAS in there. Not too much going on in the way of the panel. We do need to do some upgrades in that department, but it's got an engine monitor, 530 WAS. Like, it's got your basic stuff. Fuel totalizers, like decent, but it needs some upgrading in that department. And that's something we want to do in addition to the interior that Christian just briefly mentioned there, but Christian, our plans with aviation creation on this one?
Yeah, it only makes sense. The success we had with the Bonanza interior, so happy with it. And so this one could use a similar treatment. Yeah, we have gotten a chance to head over there and actually do an in-person consultation. And we actually found a spare seat frame. So we are already able to get the ball rolling on this interior and hope to do something. Maybe tie in this paint job because it's a different paint job than the original. And so if we can, again, tie it in like we did on the Bonanza, it would just look so custom and so nice.
So aside from the interior, I think it's mainly just the panel that needs some work. We definitely need to update the audio panel. That is like archaic and the sound quality is like terrible. Definitely need some help in that department. Maybe.
And the radio kind of went out. You used the backup.
Oh yeah, one of the radios is like acting a little iffy. So like just a couple little squawks to sort out. But I think if we do some nice fresh, maybe some Aspen upgrades, some Garmin stuff, I don't know. We'll see what we can do on a budget, something reasonable. We're not trying to go crazy, but just something tasteful to make it a better trainer. And then we should be off to the races. Other mods, I don't think we'll be doing a whole lot to it. Just like some cosmetic stuff, as you can see, just little paint imperfections, mainly firewall forward. So we're gonna do maybe a little repaint, touch-up work on the front nose part of the plane. The rest of the plane's paint is in quite nice condition, so no real complaints there. And all the other big mods are already done. I forgot to mention the Cleveland brake upgrade. So it's got like 4-piston or 2-piston, double the amount of braking power as a stock 182. I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse. If you know what you're doing with the brakes, I'm sure it's amazing. But me, like being a student pilot, I tapped them like once and like, oh my gosh, the whole plane like went. They're so touchy. Owen agreed. Like they have the most insane biting power. It's a major upgrade, pretty expensive, and I'm glad to have it. But they're touchy. But that'll help enable you to stop in 300 feet or less or whatever. So that's nice. Stole kit. Anything else we're missing, Christian? You have bigger tires without the wheel pants, so that'll really help you get into those backcountry strip activities with Owen. Coming soon to the YouTube channel. Hopefully we'll be able to do some flights around Arizona, Utah, Colorado. Take this thing up to Montana. This thing would absolutely love Montana. There's so many strips out there that would be really fun to take it to.
Yeah, I'd say as long as the engine doesn't crap out and turn like our SR20 did, then we should be in business.
Definitely don't plan on that happening. The compression's fantastic. We actually talked to the mechanic who knew this plane and worked on it for the last 22 years or something, since like 1999. He has been the only guy working on this plane. He says it's a great plane. He says state of California, basically like unlimited budget. Like I said, they just fixed a lot of things and just upgraded. Obviously, all these upgrades were not cheap, and they just wrote checks after check just to upgrade this plane with no expense and maintain it really, really well. So he says, yes, mechanically it's great. A couple of, the cosmetic imperfections, state of California doesn't care about that stuff. So they're not going to go fixing every last little like appearance thing, but that's something that we can do and upgrade ourselves to really turn it into something very nice inside and out. So that's kind of our goal. But the bones of the plane and the motor and everything should be super solid for many hundreds and hundreds of hours to come. So we're really looking forward to that. And
so you're thinking we're going to keep this one?
Oh boy, the $1 million question. Do we keep this one? I feel like we're always turning cars and we're always turning planes, but this is special. I think especially once we post these videos on our YouTube channel, our fan base is definitely going to say, keep it, do not sell it. Like it's so rare to find the planes, the 300 horsepower conversions that if we sell it, we're not going to be able to easily replace it, especially with the market right now for 182s red hot. But then again, it's red hot, so we might get an offer that we can't refuse. Oh, what do
Exactly.
we do? What do we do? Comment down below on this video, guys. Please help us out. Do we keep the 182 or flip it for a nice profit? We need some help in that department.
I've got my eye and my imagination going on one or two others, so we'll see what happens.
Can we just keep one for once? I like this
We're
thing.
never going to get our pilot's license. We're never going to train. We're never going to fly ourselves.
If only Owen was a CFI. He says, I have no interest in training people. I enjoy my job and I don't need to get into CFI work. So sorry, guys. It's a no from me. Because we would have been able to log a lot of hours by now. That flight home was 5 or 6 hours. And I did a lot of flying. He helped me with one of those takeoffs. Again, there was a lot going on, but I learned a lot. And I had us on course. It does have autopilot. I forgot about that modification. GPSS as well. So I could have just turned that on, but I enjoyed hand flying it and racking up some hours, even though none made it to my logbook. Still nothing signed off because we don't, because Owen's not a CFI. But that's okay. It goes back to what I said last video. As long as we're always learning something new every flight, every day, that's good in my book. We're not training to go to the airlines to rack up 1,000 hours as quick as possible. We have no need for that. It's all about learning. So as long as we're learning, it's okay if we're not racking up hours in our flight book.
And there is the story of our 182, half of which I learned while sitting here hearing it from Jeffrey of what went on in California when I was unknown, oblivious to all of this, and had to pay for half of it.
Yep, that's how the story goes. Eating a burrito, bidding on a Cessna 182 from my iPhone, walking away with it and flying it home the next day after buying it in cash.
I'm sure there is a lot more to learn to come, so follow us on our channel and we'll maybe even see you back here with another story some point down the line.
We'll see. Thanks for watching.
Hey gang, here from Hangar Talk. Thank you so much for plugging into the channel, liking, subscribing. We appreciate all you continuous subscribers, and we can't wait to see you on the next one.